Welcome to the AI Ascent podcast, where we explore how AI is reshaping industries, businesses, and the way we think about the future. I'm your host, Geet Gera, CEO and founder of AI Ascent Partners. And today's guest is one of the most fascinating founders I've come across, Dr. Drew Taylor. He's a scientist, an entrepreneur, a former professional baseball pitcher. Yes, you heard that right. And the co-founder and CEO of Acorn Biolabs, just named to Fast Company's most innovative companies of 2026. Acorn is doing something that sounds more like fiction, but it's very much happening right now. Preserving your own stem cells from hair follicles so that you have access to your youngest, most potent cells for future regenerative treatments. Drew, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. That was quite the introduction.
I have to start with the baseball to biotech trajectory because it's too good to be true. You played professionally with the Blue Jays and Phillies while earning your PhD in biomedical engineering at the University of Toronto simultaneously. Most people struggle to do one of those things. What was going on in your mind during that period, and how did an injury become point that led to Acorn?
Yeah, well, it's a big question. I have to say that I was pretty lucky to have some amazing influences in my life, and my father being one of them. He was a person that was very dedicated to his career in medicine, but also had the opportunity to play professional baseball. So I think I grew up with a mindset of it being possible to do both. I was actually going to head off to medical school. I was down at the University of Michigan. I was going to head off to medical school after finishing my undergrad and master's and playing baseball there, and had the opportunity to sign a professional contract with the Blue Jays and head down to the minor leagues and report in spring training. So it was a really great opportunity for me. Unfortunately, I did talk with the dean and asked if it would be possible to balance both. I think as you probably understand, doing both of those simultaneously, MD and baseball, was next to impossible. He did appreciate what I was trying to do, and so he ended up suggesting that I look at PhD programs. And so, not wanting to lose any momentum in my academic career, I transferred over to the PhD program. I actually switched schools and went over to the University of Toronto. I was with the Blue Jays. I'm from Toronto, so I think there's a lot of great fit there. And so I was able to jump into to continuing my education, and this more on the therapeutic creation side of things, and use regenerative medicine and stem cells to create biologic treatments for connective tissues was what I specialized in. So it's a great opportunity for me to continue education. Baseball was phenomenal. I ended up playing in the minor leagues with the Blue Jays for a number of years, and then the Phillies after that. I would say an arm injury cut my career short a little shorter than I'd like it to have been. But I had a great experience, and that sparked a lot of interest in the regenerative capacity of leveraging our own cells in a number of different areas. And connective tissues is obviously very inclusive of sports medicine, so it has definitely fueled the passion for creating these solutions so that we can stay doing the things actively, if not professionally, that we love.
Yeah, I think creativity always has its own charm of sparking things in you which you don't have otherwise.
Absolutely.
Let me make sure I get this right. And I want our listeners to really picture this. We are talking about plucking roughly 50 hair follicles from the back of the scalp in a non-invasive procedure that takes around 30 minutes. Those follicles go to the Acorn lab where the cells are analyzed for viability and then preserved at minus 190 degrees Celsius. And essentially the biological clock stops at that point of time.
Yeah.
Is that the right way to think about it?
And couldn't have said it better myself. We pluck follicles from the back of the scalp. What we really zeroed in on is that we have highly viable mesenchymal stem cells in the base of our follicles. They're accessible, so you can reach them without having to drill into the iliac crest for bone marrow or use liposuction for fat. And they also cryogenically store very well. In fact, we analyzed a number of different avenues of collecting these cells, including fat cells. The hair follicle and bone marrow cryogenically preserved much better using the cryogenics that we have available today, right? They're all water-soluble efforts. Fat is unfortunately more oil-based. So once you have those follicles captured, you can essentially freeze them down at temperatures of negative 190 degrees Celsius. At that temperature, there is no cell metabolism. There's no cell aging. There's no damage that's accumulating. Those cells are literally frozen in time. And so now you have a template of yourself that won't age another day, like a biologic health insurance policy that you can then dip back into and leverage in this very exciting future of regenerative medicine.
And why hair follicles specifically?
So the hair follicles is a few big advantages. One, it's accessible, right? So it's non-invasive. There's a number of patient populations that they will not extract bone marrow from because of the comorbidities or the damage that can cause because it's so invasive. On top of that, cells from fat don't store as long term as ones from either bone marrow or hair follicles. So it's really the perfect combination of having highly viable cells that cryogenically preserve very efficiently, and there's no comorbidities or no damage that occurs in harvesting them. Our hairs will grow back after they've been plucked, and so we don't have to sacrifice anything permanent.
Yeah, that's very thoughtful. The global stem cell banking market is currently valued at around 11 to $12 billion and projected to reach between 24 and 40 billion by 2033, depending on the research source.
Yeah.
That is a significant market. In your view, what is driving that acceleration right now? Is there awareness, clinical trial progress, or something else?
I think it's a number of different things. I think clinical trial progress and the amount of attention on stem cells has certainly accelerated that. But even just at its more basic area, the world of regenerative medicine exploding into popularity and accessibility is huge. I actually think that even the growth that is described is undervaluing that market and how much it will actually inevitably grow. And that's because when we think about our cells as a resource, previous to regenerative medicine in worlds of pharmacology, the actual compound, the chemical compound was the resource, right? So you have a pure chemical compound in a laboratory, you're worried about purity and you're worried about no contaminants, and you can put that into a pill or an injection or whatever the treatment is. And that is the concern, but you can manufacture that chemical compound. In the world of regenerative medicine, the starting material is actually living, it's cells. And so by that, the next currency in healthcare is actually going to be our own cells. Can you manufacture those in a lab? We have to have access to them. And so for me, I think cryogenically preserving cells from ourselves makes perfect sense, in making sure that we have the best version of ourselves to tap into and leverage into this exciting future. But then also we can then have a ongoing resource, essentially, so that you can dip into this multiple times, right? You're not just harvesting those cells when you need them. You're locking them away in time, but you're also able to dip into this many, many times and not worried about having to take cells multiple times throughout your life for all these different treatments and as they continue to age. So I think it's a very exciting, very bright future in regenerative medicine. And the next currency in healthcare will be your own live cells.
Okay. And I want to pivot to AI because that's where my work lies. Do you think organizations actually operationalize AI in ways that create real measurable value? In the stem cell and regenerative medicine space, where is AI having the most concrete impact right now versus where it is still aspirational?
Yeah. So I think that on a lot of these areas in medicine that are emerging, like diagnostics and as well as personalized medicine, there aren't clear work systems that exist to document those things and to track those things. And so leveraging AI to actually create systems that communicate between the laboratory, between the patient, and between the providers is something where there's a huge opportunity. I'm excited about some of the areas that we're internally looking at AI, leveraging AI already in some areas of our work, where it is really like thinking about how all of those interactions can be optimized. On the other side, when we're not thinking about the commercial side, but on the research side, AI is already integral in some of these workflows. But I still think we're at the tip of the iceberg of what the possibilities are. Some of these data sets that exist that look at all of the layers of omics, right? So genomics, epigenetics, transcriptomics, proteomics, metabolomics, right? All of these layers all interact with each other and influence each other. But typically, when we would look at this diagnostically, we'd look at those things in isolation. And there are already massive data sets when you have them, even in isolation. So the idea of being able to start to layer these things together is one of the things in medicine that is really interesting is sometimes where these changes occur. You could have a gene that is perfectly functioning and it ends up coding for mRNA that also is properly coded. But only once it gets transcribed and put into a protein is there some change at that level that actually confers a disease and creates a problem. And so if you look at the genetics, you wouldn't see it. You'd have to actually go down to the protein level. So understanding where that chain of command gets broken and what problem that needs to be remedied or intercepted, I think that is going to open up amazing opportunities for medical interventions to combat diseases that we have no options for today. We're not there yet. I think that, these are massive data sets. These are huge models. And we're starting to, there's some groups that are working on that and some great ones that we've collaborated with. But it is, it's a whole new era, I think, of what we can do with these massive biologic data sets to understand the interactions between those different layers.
So opportunity is huge there to interpret the data and use that in the form where it should be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think some of the other areas that are getting exciting where um, um, models are being leveraged is accessing some of these huge databases that, I mean, before you have to have a human that is recognizing one of these interactions as possible. But some of these small molecule opportunities of leveraging molecules in different areas, right? So we have identified this molecule, it's being used in a certain place, but it's other opportunities to deliver benefit or combat diseases or things are not fully known. I think understanding some of the molecular pairings or the binding affinities or the sites that match the lock and key of our biology, understanding all those other areas that these molecules can be leveraged in, I think is another area that we're going to see explode over the coming years.
Right. And Acorn has articulated a vision for the aesthetics clinics of 2030. Patients visit begin not with a quick intake form, but with the full biological workup. AI drive scan, measuring skin elasticity, hair follicle activity, cellular signals, and measuring biological age. That is a profound data intensive vision. What does the data infra behind that looks like, and how is AI being built into Acorn's platform right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think right now it's mostly behind the scenes, right? Like these are things that are being developed to create models and opportunities and platforms, right? But that's what Acorn is building, is a platform. I think these tools, both from a diagnostic perspective of understanding yourself better, and then as well as a therapeutic perspective of understanding once we know things, how do we intercept them and make ourselves better, I think is what we're building. That all starts with grabbing something from ourselves and freezing that in time so that we have that as a resource. And so that's the banking component. Already, we've now branched off of that bank and created the first applications to deliver patient benefit. We actually looked at the proteomics from the actual hair follicle secretome that we're able to produce in the laboratory from a patient's own cells and identified molecules that we can produce up to 34 times higher than the levels that are currently delivered in PRP, platelet-rich plasma, and other biologic deliverables in aesthetics practices for hair regeneration or skin rejuvenation. And so now we can actually create something that is more concentrated, still completely biologically identical to you, but then can also be produced at scale so that you can have multiple vials of this rather than having to have multiple blood draws or all of these different inconveniences, let's call them. You can have that ready and waiting on demand. So it really has opened up this offshoot where we can actually start delivering value to patients today. So right now in practices across North America to start, you can actually capture your live cells and freeze them, but then also dip into those cells to create treatments for hair regeneration and skin rejuvenation. That's being paired alongside microneedling, laser, plastic surgery, hair transplants, and the like. And we also have clinical trials right now that are ongoing to leverage that same type of technology in an injectable format. So using that to inject essentially for those same purposes, targeting hair and skin. And we just started to branch out into other areas, including a joint project that we have at the University of Calgary in targeting orthopedics and cartilage regeneration, as well as reducing inflammation in joints. And there's other areas that we're investigating that include ophthalmology, fertility, neurology, and beyond. So I think it's a very exciting future of having our cells as the template. I think many of these avenues on how to leverage those cells, some initial ideas are coming from us right now. I think those ideas may come from AI soon.
Yeah, it's a fascinating journey from what I see. There is a theme I keep seeing in the longevity and regeneration medicine space, which is that the value of data compounds over time. The more biological history you have stored, the better AI can optimize future therapies. Is Econ building towards that, essentially becoming a personalized biological data set for each patient? And what are the ethical frameworks that have to surround that?
Yeah, so it's a great question. It's multifold, right? So the first part is what I think you're alluding to is the value of the data over time and how that compounds. And I think that there are parts of biologic data that in fact do that and other parts that are more stationary. So genetics is our book of our bodies, right? So those words don't change. The frequency or, they're almost like light switches, right? You can turn those light switches on and off, but imagine they're more on a dimmer switch. They can be dimmed up and down. So, but the actual text it is there, the genetic code does not change unless there's a mutation, right? The epigenetics that lay on top of that changes over time. And some phenomenal scientists like Dr. David Sinclair and others have really contributed to building out the knowledge around what that actually means and how you can manipulate that to get the best performance out of your cells, both from a performance standpoint as well as an age standpoint. And so I think we're learning every day that goes by from great scientists like him and others on how that is impacting the dimmer switch on our genetic code, right? And this control that has over our aging process. But beyond that, you also have transcriptomics, so how those genes get coded into mRNA. And then the mRNA, which in our cells will actually end up being the code to produce proteins. The genetics might be immutable. The epigenetics is changing downstream the RNA, right? And that the volume of that RNA is changing. And then inevitably at the end, the volumes of those proteins. We already know that there are things, let's just take skin, for an example. Hyaluronic acid and collagen in our skin are dropping every year that goes by. We have actual protein cues that we know we can predict how our skin is aging. So I think what these models can do is if we can actually better control potentially the molecular cues that are driving the accumulation of these essential proteins, and that's a lot of what we do with the Secretome, as well as some of the work to actually reverse the hard-coded aging that is on top of those cells, the epigenetics, we can actually have cells that perform at a younger capacity for longer, right? Or even push them back towards a younger capacity of reacting. We've actually seen that by applying the Secretome skin, where we track different biologic markers of age, right? So these are the hallmarks of aging in our skin that have been identified by a multitude of different scientists and different predictors of skin age. And two of the big ones are ultraviolet light damage. It's so the disruption that occurs there, as well as inflammation. And you've seen that by taking your cells and leveraging the secretome and applying that back to your skin, you can actually reverse those markers, not only of inflammation, but even the actual damage that accumulates due to ultraviolet light. So you can actually remove spots, have those reduce. And we've demonstrated that clinically, which is very exciting. So I think that we're getting more and more tools and resources to actually deploy in practice that are going to help us maintain our biologic age across the board. And it's happening in different tissues at different rates. Obviously, the skin being on the surface, it's happening very fast, and we're excited to be contributing to that area of science for sure.
Interesting. So in my work with enterprises adopting AI, one of the biggest barrier I see is not really the technology itself. It's the change management, trust, and the gap between what AI can theoretically do and what practitioners are actually willing to adopt. Are you seeing that same dynamic in the clinic network you are building with Acorn? And how do you get the mineralogists and plastic surgeons to lean into the model?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's one of the areas where different people on the team and even different partnerships that you have at the clinic level are adopting some of these technologies at different rates. But also, I don't think that you necessarily have to have everybody leveraging. Everybody has the opportunity to leverage AI at different ways, even the MLLs. But the background, like the idea is to leverage AI to make some of these workplaces more seamless and some of the interactions more seamless. Part of that is communication. And I think creating frameworks that optimize sharing information that helps empower decisions to be made more accurately, more quickly is going to be one of the biggest areas that we see as an interaction between us, provider, and a laboratory, and an actual physician that's in front of that patient. But then it's going to affect the patient as well, because ultimately they're going to be able to have access to that powerful diagnostics and insights around that based on the collective knowledge that is going to be embedded into the AI from our experience and our practitioners' experience and all of this combined to understand how best to leverage, for instance, in our case, regenerative medicine in real time.
You founded Acorn in 2017. So you have been at this for almost a decade. I'm curious, what is the thing that surprised you about building a company at the intersection of deep science and commercial healthcare? Because that's particularly a combination.
Yeah. I think, there's the deep science and the technology side of it, but what we're delivering is healthcare, right? And that's a very human part of this. So I think that for me, I see the value in this, right? The first thing I did was run out and make sure that my wife was banked and her cells were saved and our kids' cells were saved, and then mine and our parents and our friends. And so you have this passion to try to share that. But I think that, what I've seen with patients is it is a lot of education. that takes time and it takes energy to get out there and to share that message with people. We're really lucky that we have a fantastic group of now over 200 physicians and providers that are helping us to share that message with their patient bases, and that grows every week. So it is an exciting opportunity to see that start to cascade and get bigger, but it starts small, right? With that first practitioner that partnered with you, and then it goes from there. And so I think for us, really, we were very heads down in the lab for the first half of this company and the lifetime, probably more than half. And that went on for through COVID, right? And as we started coming back out of COVID, we were very much focused on executing in the laboratory and testing out the appetite from patients for technologies like this. And then once we've seen us emerge after that, launching the cell banking opportunity widely, and then layering on just last year, the opportunity to leverage the Secretome, that's where we start to see this exponential excitement around this space. And I think that your own cells is part of how you are going to be really thinking about your own longevity, right? And one of the pillars in how you're going to deliver healthcare in the future and make sure that you make these decisions for yourself. And so we see more and more individuals really taking ownership over that, making sure that they're taking action to have the best version of themselves to meet this exciting future of regenerative medicine and longevity. And, there's a lot of exciting work going on in different spaces. And on the regenerative medicine and cell-based side of it, we're really excited to be part of it.
Fast Company just named Acorn one of the most innovative companies of 2026. That kind of external validation matters. I know from building AIs and partners how much right recognition create and accelerate trust. How does a moment like that changes your conversation with partners, investors, and potential clients?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an amazing validation for the hard work that we've put in, right? And Fast Company's obviously been one of the groups that identify some of these paradigm shift technologies as they come about before it's even well known. And so for us being a part of what they've identified and are honoring as one of those technologies that is influencing the future is an incredible honor. That was definitely something that we're really excited about. And I'm excited really about the spectrum of different, acknowledgements across the company, because I think that's the mission at large, right? And what we're building this platform. But it's been also really exciting to see individual parts of what we do, like the Secretome win awards from different groups of aesthetics, like New Beauty and others. So that to me, across the board, is something that I think it's nice to take pause and to recognize. But at the same time, we feel like we're just getting started. So it's an amazing honor. We're super excited about it.
Yeah.
We're going to take a moment to celebrate it. I think coming up here in a couple of weeks. But at the same time, we're still heads down, continuing to grow and make sure that Acorn continues to make itself available to more and more people.
What does a day look like when you know the company has achieved what you set out to build? And what is the Acorn's version of success 10 years from now?
Yeah, so I love that question. I mean, day to day, it's a lot of heads down education, dealing with essentially the opportunity to add partners that are going to help us with that education, and then bring on obviously users and their patients that we're helping to either cryogenically preserve their cells for the future or start leveraging their cells right away in their skincare and hair aspirations. But beyond that, I think that when we think about 10 years down the road, it's the dream of being able to provide people with more time, right? So more time to spend with their loved ones, doing the things that they do, right? Having more healthy years to accomplish all of those amazing goals. And that's certainly how I think about it personally, right? I want to make sure that I am there to watch my kids at a number of their milestones throughout their lives and are able to participate in them, right? I want to spend as many years with my wife watching our children grow up as possible. And so extending the amount of time that we get to do that is really the mission of Acorn.
And for someone listening to this, adding stem cell banking to their practice, a health conscious consumer, what is the single most thing you want to take away from this conversation?
Yeah, I think that this new era in healthcare is really about taking your own health into your hands and making decisions for yourself, right? And not relying on anybody but yourself to make sure that you're protecting yourself for the future. And our entire healthcare system is really reactionary, right? When something goes wrong, then we react to it. There's nothing wrong with that, except that it's missing a big component that I think we see more and more groups starting to focus on, and it being a huge driver for how we think about longevity and healthy aging and Healthspan. And it's the preventative side. It's about taking an action initiatives to maintain ourselves, our performance, our youth, our ability to continue to live at our peak and at our our optimal levels of regardless of our age, that really falls into our hands, right? Because nothing's wrong with us yet, right? We don't need to go in. It's about thinking about ourselves and making decisions for ourselves. That can be decisions throughout your life, right? About just what you eat, what you put in your body, the exercise and sleep patterns you have. But then beyond that, I think that there's some tangible decisions that you can make about banking your cells, about engaging in some of these regenerative treatments and things that are going to be influencing our longevity today. And we're really excited to be working with the leading practitioners really across North America to date and hopefully worldwide soon, in making sure that that's available to anybody wherever you are.
That's good. And where can people find Acorn Biolabs, connect with you? And if a clinic is interested in becoming a partner, how do they start that conversation?
Absolutely. So you can go to acorn.me as a website, and you can actually learn a little bit more about us. There's also a map of all of the providers that we work with and physicians that we work with, where you can actually go and get this done, either the banking or access to the Secretome or both. And then on top of that, you can follow us to Acorn Biolabs on Instagram, or Dr. Drew Taylor is me on Instagram as well.
So this has been genuinely one of the most fascinating conversations I've had. You are building at the intersection of two of the most consequential fields of our time, biology and artificial intelligence, and doing it in a way that is grounded in real science, real clinical partnership, and a real commercial model. I cannot wait to follow what Acorn does next. And thank you so much for being there.
No, thank you so much. This has been a wonderful conversation. I really appreciate the opportunity to reach your audience and share our work.